Okay, so welcome. So we've just had our first open space for Gita, which I think was quite fun. So we're definitely going to repeat this and continue doing this. Actually, the majority of the people here also were in the open space.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Were there others who were not part of this meeting now?
There were others, yes, and these are apparently now engaged in other conversations, at least some of them.
Nice.
So, okay, let's head into our Scrum parts, and then in the end we have our open session for checking in and seeing what else needs to be discussed. And let's begin with traditionally with Ulf and René with the MIMS group. What has been happening? What is your next steps and plans? And are you stuck in any way that we can maybe help and work on?
Yeah, Ulf, do you want, or shall I proceed?
You're muted.
Okay.
Ulf, you're muted.
Ulf's not there.
No, he's muted. He's just muted.
Okay, so I'd probably then I start until that's fixed. Yeah, basically we made some progress, but not much progress, I have to admit. So in fact, our group was slowing down over the last couple of weeks. That's mainly, I think, probably due to the fact that especially I was very busy and really even had to skip the last but one weekly that we usually have. So basically it's just for me, especially a time where I'm unable to drive this forward as it was possible over, let's say, the last 8 weeks. And that's something that bugs me, but basically I can't change it as clients and customers are waiting, and I have to focus a little bit on my new company. But to come back to the progress we made, basically we start with objective 1, which is in fact something which was not further developed, but due to the fact that this is in fact closed. The objective 1 was, as you can see in Notion, a SWOT analysis of Gita Germany and the tech impact ecosystem. And I think there was quite a nice result with the SWOT and combinations document. And that's in fact finalized. So the only question, and that's probably something we discussed briefly, but basically it's just kind of a question again, what we should do with this kind of, let's say, results, where we will have a kind of bucket where other groups can derive information from, etc. So that's basically something that we should probably discuss in the end of this session, as other groups will probably have final results and certain objectives too. The next thing was objective 2. I think basically there was something that Joscha pushed forward. Joscha, do you want to talk a little bit about it?
Sure, I can do that. So I mean, for us, same as René, I think it also slowed down, especially over the last 2.5 weeks, which was for similar reasons. That we also had some new projects and customers starting, so there was especially busy on my end, and that's why I wasn't also really able to participate in the weeklies or drive forward, so to say. I think the last thing that was open for us on the kind of mapping the ecosystem, so mapping the impact tech ecosystem in Germany, was to kind of now put a bit more meat on the bones, so to say, and not only keep it abstract in terms of what are the actors, but really adding also concrete names, etc. to it. And we prepared that, Melina and myself, and we're then kind of where we left off the conversation was to say, okay, hey, now we basically had a general ask within Gita, and I know that there were also a few people getting back, Ulf and Thomas. We also had a conversation separately from that. But I was also not able to now follow up and kind of concretely ask individuals to say, hey, do you have a list or do you know specific examples to kind of do that, let's say, data gathering phase. So I am aware that there is a few people who are also for either their own organization building different kind of lists of like, I don't know, impact investors in Germany or also startups, but kind of getting that together is the kind of final step to close this objective for us. Yeah, that's kind of currently on my shoulders, that I have not been able to do that over the last 2 weeks specifically to make meaningful progress, let's say.
Okay, thank you.
But yeah, so, I think it's with that, it would almost be done. So from our side would also be kind of interesting to see what could actually be new objectives and key results now for probably the rest of the year, because it's arguably also close to be a new quarter. And where could we continue? Where do we want to continue with that now that we have the kind of groundwork? Mm-hmm. Back to René.
Okay, and so about objective 3, basically we just redefined a bit of the OpenKR 3.4 that in fact is based upon that result that we had last time. It was just restructuring, in fact, the KRs, and I just wanted to drive it forward, but I was not able to. And moreover, by the way, I met Florian, who's usually living in Tel Aviv, but last week he was here in Berlin, and we met over a coffee. And we were also talking about his input, because he's the kind of marketing guy that knows best how to activate communities, as he's specialized in that. But of course, he's, I think, right now traveling back to Israel. And due to the situation that he's probably then needs to jump in his regular work again and is not able to focus on work for Gita, we, especially Ulf and Elke, by the way, Elke was very helpful over the last weeks for our group with her input, took the lead of doing a session on KR 341, which is then the first product proposal, the first so-called final outcome of this objective, which is in fact a product proposal for the, what I say, not yet impact-oriented VCs. That's something that Elke and Ulf will drive forward next Friday. That's a little bit kind of extended weekly session. Our weekly session for the MIMS group is Friday at 3 p.m. Berlin time, and we want to use that starting with a typical weekly, and then extend that to talk in a workshop session about the KR 341. Basically, the idea is to pre-structure that product input to deliver this to Florian, which then probably refines that for the final document when he's able to take a look at it. And I think that will be hopefully the outcome for our next Scrum session that we can present there. So that's on objective 3. But Ulf, probably you managed to activate your microphone again. I was just talking about your objective 1. Is there something that you want to add?
Yeah, what we figured, probably you remember, was this bias, which is always a bit of a problem with this kind of work, that there are very few people working on this, and then they have some personal opinions which very much dominate the results in the end. And I think that was something which is unsolved until now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the same things that we had as input for the last Scrum, as blockers and everything around that is the same. So even I think the participation from the group got worse because at least me and probably Yosha did not have that much time over the last 4 weeks to push that project forward. And there was the only positive difference was that Elke was really very helpful for joining our sessions here. So that's probably the positive thing to take. And the next thing is, as Ulf said, yes, of course, our documents are still very biased due to the input from, let's say, a group of, let's say, 4 to 6 people or so. And that last thing is something that I mentioned before, is what we do with the kind of product proposals and documents that we derive from our work. How do we present that to the public, etc.? Because at least my understanding is that they're on a global level and on a local level, there is not a kind of infrastructure that we could use for present that as an output of our groups. Basically, like for instance, the GIN network is doing that with their website, etc., etc. So that's probably something that we need to discuss. Is there anything else that we want to add, MIMS leads?
No, from my side, I can just say hello. You can hear me, yeah.
Yeah, I can even see you. It's
right.
A very interesting background. What is it?
Yeah, it's art. So because it's just a mess around here, so that's why. I'm back in Israel, sweating. Everybody's wondering why, because we're facing the second lockdown, so bad timing in a way. Yes, I tried to catch up, as you said, like 6 weeks almost, like not being on the desk all day. So I really have to catch up and see all the things you have done. And afterwards, I'm happy to just jump in and try to bring up some idea how to communicate the product, whatever it is in the end.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no, I think from my side, not much to add. I think I still have a lot of confidence in our group in terms of moving things forward. But yeah, I mean, as you said, like sometimes there are also a lot of other things that are on your plate. So I know that's the case for me. So still excited for the things to come.
That's good to hear. Although we haven't managed to produce answers to the questions that were posed again this time. So that's definitely needs to be our focus on the Gita side, and especially mine, to think this through and come up with something that's that allows us to at least present. And I want to come back to this afterwards. I think we have no one from the collaboration group here. Is that right?
I'm from the collaboration group, but
okay.
I also need to say that I need to catch up with things. So it's a bit. I've not been too much in that group recently, and joined your invitation.
Okay, so I would say we go into impact measurement briefly, and then maybe Stefan, you can give us a little feeling into what's happening in the collaboration group, and then I would propose that we have a discussion around how to present the findings to the public and move this towards something usable.
So I'll quick catch up on the measurement group. I think it kind of echoes a little bit of what René and Ulf were saying. So it's been quiet in the last couple of weeks, also because we're looking for who to take the lead, since both Ben, who is starting a new venture, and Claire, who's focusing on her work ever since September started, have asked to take a smaller position. and myself as well. You know, Gita has also kind of taken a priority. I've been working the last month or so really hard to establish the organization in a framework that we can raise capital and fundraising for these kind of initiatives that we're doing. And I think that's the next conversation Thomas will talk about how do we take these products that we've developed and find a way to actually get them out in the world. And so my responsibility on that side is to find the money, find the framework, and make sure that we have it available for all the Gita community. So that's going on. I can talk a lot about that. All that to say, the group has kind of been waiting. Everything's prepared, but like waiting for someone to want to really lead it. But I do have kind of an update around collaboration between the collaboration group and the measurement group. So I had a talk with Julia Zhu, who works in a firm that is actually being set up right now, an impact VC firm that's being structured right now. And we talked with the CEO of that initiative that said, you know, we can start developing our own matrix around how to do an impact assessment and impact due diligence for early stage startups. But why don't we actually do this as an experiment and develop it together with a community? So actually really combine the work of the measurement group together with the work of the collaboration group and really focus on trying to get an actual product out the door. So an actual fund that is using a framework developed by the community, which we had a great conversation, an introductory conversation. And once when we're going back and forth what that would mean, but once that's kind of more thought out, and this is really for this group to talk about, we're thinking of maybe combining the efforts or doing like a shared, much more focused professional working group around this project that could really, I think, be replicated in the future. And of course, we agreed that any kind of product that will be developed by this community this way will be transparent, open source, available for everyone, so that from this point forward, there is a framework developed by the community that anyone can use, and the process will also be transparent, so that any new actor wanting to use this framework will understand how it was developed, what were the considerations, what were the key issues. So that is, we just spoke for the first time on Friday, so we're just really talking it through, but it really actually, I'd love to hear your thoughts. And yeah, that's where we are.
Okay, thank you. Stefan, do you have anything to add from the perspective of the collaboration group?
Well, at least if I see at least a summary that's more than I can gain from my side, really. We have divided the group a bit into two working groups. One is related to a hub on collaboration, the other one on impact measuring. And I think Lee really gave the most recent update about the activities going on there. So from my perspective, I follow up the conversations and so forth. The impact measurement seems to be the most active part of our group at the moment. So curious to hear more about this, but of course that has been really one of the key elements in our collaboration group, how we can gain synergies with impact measurement. And yeah, also of course that is somehow one of the drivers for igniting collaboration, if you can measure somehow where you can have impact. So that's something quite inspiring if we could come out there with a product, with a community, because that is somehow an underlying question of many in our domain, how we actually measure what we do. And that drives most of our initiatives.
Cool. Okay, thank you. So to sum up, I've also had a conversation with Julia around what's going on within the collaboration group, and I see benefit in that merger, that potential merger between impact measurement and collaboration. So I'm really hoping that this this evolves and moves forward. But I'd like to focus the rest of our conversation on the MEMS group, specifically René, Ulf, and Joscha, to come up with ways of that bringing the results to the public, one, and then interfacing with other groups or within Gita in order to use those results in the real world. And I am sure you have ideas that you haven't voiced yet, probably mainly because of the felt resource restrictions we have. But I'd like to open it in a way that we try and forget about those resource restrictions and just come up with what would you love to do with your results? What is it that you would like to use it for, or use them for? How do you see this coming to fruition? And then based on that, we can look at either how we can find these resources, or how we can find ways of doing it with fewer resources.
Yeah, I think from my point of view, it really depends on the product that we generate. I mean, we have, at least in the MEMS group, we have 3 objectives, and all 3 either generate documents or they generate, let's say, at least outputs that can be used for, let's say, campaigns or databases or something. How the product then is used or needs to be built is really depending on the output. So basically, I just take these 3 examples. I think the SWOT analysis, for instance, is a document that can be used for other groups or even the public to work on that basis to find, let's say, or to judge their own products and measures or actions that they need or that they take against these kind of SWOT analysis. So this is probably something where I say probably like an output presentation or something. I mean, it's just it really depends. And the document about the ecosystem itself, it's the same. Basically, it's that could be something, a database integrated into the Gita, especially the Gita Germany, but probably in the Gita database. I mean, we have to take care a little bit about the information that are in there. There are, for instance, family office. If we want to, for instance, publish the contact person's email addresses, etc. Okay, but that's something that we need to take care of. But that's a kind of product that could be that you have a kind of which entities are the ones that are impact oriented. If you want to join an accelerator program, or if you need VCs, or if you need business angels. Aims, but probably there is networks that you can go for, and there is some contact person, and so that could be very helpful. And the last is measures to reach the, let's say, impact near, but not let's say active impact investors. How to reach out to them and how to convert them towards impact investing. I think the output here really depends on what we decide, as I said, pre-structured probably from the group and then rounded up by Florian, and then we have to really discuss bit by bit how we use that. But first of all, that's something that Ulf said, due to the bias effect, I think a kind of even internal presentation on Gita on a local, let's say local means Gita Germany level, and on the global level, which means Gita worldwide, could help for reflecting these kind of outputs or to raise questions or whatever to make these documents let's say, more robust against any bias. And that's something that we probably need to do first before we, let's say, put it out to the public, because then it should be at least something which was read by, I would probably say, the community of experts that we have here at Gita, so that we have a kind of common understanding about the documents and the deliverables and the data in the databases, etc., and then to publish it. So that's something, that's my thoughts. But basically, we need to do this kind of presentation, we need the kind of living structure. I think probably just to say, I think this Click network where we're all connected to, that global network of Gita, that's kind of nice to have a kind of directory of members, but basically that's it. So I feel it's not really used, so to say, at least for me, when I was looking at the content. So that's probably not the place to be, but probably there's another collaboration hub. For instance, it could be some global Notion page or whatever. I don't know. So
I think also that to achieving the awareness within Gita or even outside is really important. Otherwise, all the work is not, nobody makes use of it in the end. We need to communicate this and then to get the achieve the awareness which is needed to make people use the results.
Mm-hmm. Joscha, Florian, do you want to add something? You're muted.
I think it's very much like René and Ulf said. There's not much to add from my.
As I can just add, I'm not quite sure how important it is. Of course, it's important to have like some expert meetings about it, I guess. But would be interesting to hear some other people, if they got it, if they have something to add or something, especially in the ecosystem or especially in the product or whatever it's in the end we are trying to communicate, or some insights about people. It's a little bit sad, so to say, to have like a community which is not like interacting that much between the results. It's like everybody following this OKRs, and then there's no, it's not like, okay, maybe presentate each other. This would be here the place, especially for the leaders. And you have like, what do you think about this? Is it something to add or something not? Whatever. And this is missing in my. So in the first place, and then after that, it would be great to have some experts to look around it. How many this should be, I have no idea. You are the experts about this field of community.
Maybe can't we maybe set up an official kind of procedure which we recommend to the members whenever you approach investors or you discuss projects or whatever. You should do this, that, and use the results we have and in order to produce the best results in the end from all the activities. That I guess all the people within Gita, they have a lot of different projects and activities, and probably the results we produce here could be useful for this, but we need to give them a certain guideline how to apply this.
Yeah, or a form could also be like, this is how you present it, and then you can have a look.
Or flow chart or something like this.
Okay, so I understand the following. So as a first step, it is important to give it a form that can be published. And then as a second step, we need a forum to discuss what has been published in order to remove potential bias. So we can see it as work in progress, but now it's at a point where it can be formatted into something that can be published.
Yeah,
and the question
still improve the quality, I think.
Okay, improve the quality over time. So let's say it's work in progress. And I've heard database, I've heard website. What form can this publication have? So what form can it do you envision it in?
I think probably that
audience. the audience you would like to get. Of course, it's maybe easier to get it online and somehow into a digital format. But I'm still also kind of a print fan. So sometimes if you would like to give it to someone, maybe at least a printed version or something that has a good visualization or impression is good to consider this.
Okay. Would you see that printable, René, Ulf, Jascha, Florian? Do you...
Printable? What do you mean by that?
Paper.
Really?
No,
Paper? The good old one? The one that's from the woods, and so this.
Last century.
I'm still maybe a bit into that world, but of course sometimes if you put it somehow in a written form, it's also at least something to be considered. If not, that's up to us to decide.
Okay, let's agree on that. There are different types of media that we can put it on. It can be printed, it can be put on a website or in some other digital form.
My question would be,
yeah.
Sorry to interrupt, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
My question is, because I mean, right now we have this, let's say the situation that there is a few really engaged members, and they probably also, because they're part of the Scrum call, etc., they are aware of most of the things that are happening. But it is only creating value if the rest is also able to benefit from it. Now, I mean, this is, I think, the usual dynamic. I would say. I mean, we had a really well and super engaging, well organized and super engaging kickoff a couple months ago, which was also where people took a bit more time, right? It was not even like an hour on a Tuesday, but it was kind of half a day, like a half a day format. And I wonder if you kind of have like such a session, let's say, that is not only about like Scrum call and working, but has like different elements that are also around like getting to know other members in the community and networking. So also kind of adds value to participants on a different way. That might be an easier way to also share some of the results and get feedback on them from other participants. And through that interaction, also they realize, okay, we have this notion and they can look at things, and here's where you can find these things as well. And if you want to print these things, you can also just export them as a PDF and use them. But that might be an easier way to actually see, hey, here's the things that are also happening. Because I guess, I mean, even for me, it's sometimes difficult to say, okay, now during the week, I am super structured. I have like, okay, my week is like work. And then after work is like, I do my other things. So I don't know how it is for others, but such a larger event character kind of thing might be something that a lot more people participate in and therefore also get exposed to our findings and results.
I think well, that begs the question, are the findings presentable in such a meeting? Or is there some step of putting them into a form that can be digested easily in such an event? Because so to that end, to that having more discussion, having more connection, we started today the open space as a weekly event where people can just pop in and exchange ideas and get to know each other, and we will continue doing that. And I think it's a good form. It's a good addition to what we're doing. I also agree that we can and should have a bigger event to present the outcomes, and I'm totally happy and willing to organize that. But then the question is, what is being presented? So what are the resources that you would dream up to get your results presentable in a way that you can present them at such a conference, such an event? Any thoughts?
I have a couple thoughts just
Yeah.
on that, and before we get to the form, I think first of all, if there is kind of a deadline, if we set an event, you know, it'll be at least a month. You can't have people joining really if you need some time. Just having that deadline to work towards and kind of presenting it gets more energy. So I think that works. I also want to bring up the point that, you know, Ben has kind of taken a back step. So I think it's important for someone to maybe join you in the leadership or have support, because it's a lot of work setting up such a thing. That's another point. And the third point, and we talked about it briefly, and I thought, you know, just would love to hear your thoughts, is to have kind of an event with like a hackathon style. So part of the event will be people actually joining the teams as they are now. We invite everyone, people join up, and they work quickly and intensively, you know, 2-3 hours to push it towards a presentable thing. And it's like a festival of ideas. In the end, we all see what everyone has been working on as productized as possible. And then the community can choose one that will, you know, get funded or whatever. So we have some kind of engagement. I think it's also a good opportunity to bring new blood to these teams that are volunteers, and we know it takes time, so that people can leave, people can join other groups, and it's just kind of a new injection of energy. So it's just a general thought, but feedback at all if that's interesting or possible even.
Yeah. So to that point around Ben's engagement, we started the conversation around that last week. We're not finished, and we're trying to figure out how that will pan out. So we're totally aware and working on that. Let me rephrase that proposition that you gave, Lee, and ask the MIMS group here. Would that be something you would see as a benefit for what you've been working on? So if we organize this type of hackathon conference events in a couple of weeks, and then you have some time to prepare it in a way that you can present it to that group and say, okay, this is the foundation, and we want to turn this into something usable for the public, and we turn this into a hackathon. Would that be something you would want to happen? If yes, then I will make it happen.
It's a good idea. I like the idea, but I think we're not ready yet. Why? Because I think the first output that we got from our MIMS group, but also from the other groups, is, as I said, kind of unstable, likely kind of autistic view on our topics, because basically I would not feel well to, let's say, I think a hackathon is around solving a certain problem or serving a dedicated need. And I would probably phrase, it could be something that if we, for instance, go in the objective 3 of our MIMS group, and if we have a kind of campaign set up, or if we, for instance, from our objective 2, we have this kind of ecosystem mapping thing. I think that the ecosystem mapping thing is probably something which is the most tangible assets that we probably can define for a kind of hackathon thing. But at least, for instance, the output 1, the SWOT thing, is probably something that you could use probably for preparing this kind of hackathon or so. But basically, that's a background document, I would probably call it. And I think it's still so that I see a hackathon would be good to deliver. It's the to develop from a product idea to develop a product, a real product, something that you really can touch. And I think the product idea is not set at the moment. And that, I think we could work, but probably the others can comment to it. We could work especially on the topic preparing that ecosystem mapping thing as, let's say, one of the core topics for such a hackathon idea. What do you think about it? For instance, Joshua, because that's kind of your objective.
Yeah, I think what you were hinting at, Lee, is also what I meant with this kind of, let's say, event character and having a bit more engagement. Because I think, you know, like, at least from my perspective, we have all the experts in the wider Gita circle. You know, I mean, there are so many people who really know the ecosystem well. So getting their input and feedback on it will probably let us arrive at a really solid result, let's say. And therefore, kind of, it's more like this input missing and having different perspectives on it, maybe getting a few additional additional food for thought to be then able to continue it. But I think for our group specifically, this more, let's say, crowd intelligence approach might work really well. And I think it's also something that we can then maybe even put out in a more public form digitally, so that people who will be new to the ecosystem can also navigate it easier. So I've been in favor.
So when I look at it from a slightly different perspective, can you formulate a couple of questions in the form of like tasks to groups that would bring your results forward? So in other words, let's say we bring together a larger group from the Gita Germany network into a hackathon online workshop session for a couple of hours. What would the tasks be? Or do you know what the tasks would be? Or do you believe you can formulate proper tasks that they can work on?
I do think, I mean, a lot of that is basically what Melina and I created now is much more is a backbone, right? Saying, hey, here's the actors, here's their pain points, here's their opportunities, etc. Here's here's what they want, so to say. And now we're kind of in the phase of saying, okay, now who are these actors? You know, like who are the impact VCs, who are the most relevant startups, etc. So a lot of that is really driven by further input. And so kind of really thinking more of like asking the questions that we were asking ourselves and just getting additional kind of ideas thrown at us might be a very valuable thing, because in the end, that's really just a lot of information that is out there, and then we're trying to structure. In terms of concrete, say, problem statements, that is probably also where it then goes again more into what do we do with this now, which is something that maybe is already partly covered by René's group. On like now, if we know what the system or ecosystem right now looks like, how do we engage? How do we make more people aware of it and make it more mainstream, so that the few actors we have in there actually get more awareness by others who also want to be part of that ecosystem. So that would then kind of tie more into objective 3 again in terms of problem statement.
But I think that's the second step, right? So, I mean, the first question is, how do we get to something that we actually want to publish and push out? And does this idea of a hackathon help towards that end? And this is what I'm trying to get a grip on. I still am not 100% 100% convinced that I mean, we can't do this, but I don't know what the result will be. What is the outcome of such an event? I think we're not clear on that. Once we're clear on that, we will do it.
Well, I think what can be the outcome? For example, our objective 3 is a strategy draft to shape a more sexy image of the impact space. And
yeah,
the result of such an event would be it's not draft anymore. It's a proper strategy,
okay,
which can be made available to anybody who needs it. And that's even something I think about all the last 10 minutes. What can we do with this? And I think, we have within Gita, we have a lot of stakeholders. They are all doing different things, but they are all, for example, talking to investors or holding speeches or talking to politicians or whatever. Maybe we could set up a platform where you can, depending on a task, retrieve recommendations or strategies which can be used for the next speech or whatever, in order to make impact mainstream.
That's very interesting.
Because in the daily work, there are 100 people and everybody is working in the impact space, and they are all have again and again similar tasks, and they should have a platform where they can get support in order to achieve the best results in their work.
I just can add something to it that I took from, as I was working for Sun, I had probably the funniest business card in my life. I was a technology evangelist. So I love the evangelist topic. But what was very helpful was, Ulf, to build on that, what you said. We had a kind of ambassador guideline. So that was a kind of, let's say, framework that in fact gave you all of the background information, all of the data, and all of everything that you needed if you approach customers, if you do keynotes, et cetera, et cetera. And you had a kind of helpline that directly was leading you to the management or to the tech teams that developed something.
Helping to achieve best results, right?
To achieve the best results. In fact, that was we were a kind of one-person army, so to say, always with our topic, traveling around the world and trying to push some technology that was invented by that company forward. And basically, that's the same what you said, is that we need a kind of guidebook that could be something like the SWOT documents, or what are the positive arguments if you talk to family offices, for instance, to engage more towards impact investing? What is, for instance, the hot startups examples that you would probably take, or what is the kind of classic assets what you would put into the impact investing context if they are saying, yeah, we don't invest in these seed startup things, then you say, hey, don't worry, impact investing is broader than you think, probably. And that's some, as I said, it's a kind of guidebook that helps you there. That could be some real, it could be some real good format.
Okay. All right. So I can feel that something is emerging. So when should we do that event?
Well, this there are two steps. One would be an event to improve the results and to really finalize these documents. And then the next step would be to create such a guidebook or platform or whatever, where everybody has access and it can get support for whatever kind of tasks they are facing.
And in order to prepare from your end for that first event, how much time do you think you would need? How much ramp up do you think you would need?
I mean,
I never prepared a hackathon.
Well, I'll prepare I'll organize the event, but how much do you need from a content perspective? How much time? Could we do this tomorrow? So if I say tomorrow, 80 people, 5 hours, go. Can you do it?
I personally wouldn't feel confident.
No.
would
I
be
mean, I would, for our concrete topic, I would probably take a, take now a couple of days to see like what would be the concrete questions, you know, like what are the concrete things where, or problem statements where such an event could be really, really helpful for us, and probably would see with Ulf and René also whether there's anything from their end, because it's, I mean, I would not be able to fill 5 hours of content. I think mine would probably be more an hour, 90 minutes, like going through the different things and like organizing brainstorming sessions. But I don't think I personally need more than that.
But I think 5 hours including the actual work of the participants on the content.
Yeah, sure.
So presenting something, gathering the content, making sense of it, and then
I think, you know, it's not so much content what we have generated, so it could be a compact event, I think. But a big benefit would also be to eliminate to a certain extent this bias we talked about before, you know, because then we have more people thinking about the same questions again, and then we can eliminate some of those biases and improve the results.
So the story here is that we have tangible results coming out of the Making Impact Mainstream group. The goal is to create a guidebook for anybody speaking about why does tech impact investing make sense on stages with VCs, with family offices, whoever, having one shared language and examples and numbers and one resource for everyone. This is our goal. And there's one step in between where we gather for some sense making before we formulate that into this guidebook. And then a third event will be the publication of that guide book in whatever media forms we decide to have it. Does that make sense? Is that a path?
So the event, one thing I noticed that really we have mostly people here from the memes group. So I wonder if this is an interesting platform, this kind of, for the other groups, even though they have maybe kind of lost their momentum. Maybe they would like to kind of have that same feedback, same interaction with the group, and that if it's really a larger community, people can choose, you know, what project they want to contribute to. I'm asking just what you guys think. Is that confusing? Is that too many issues?
I can see both perspectives. So I can, on the one hand, I think from an overall Gita perspective, I think we should aim for getting to product as quickly as possible, and focusing on too many different streams will make that more difficult. And from the perspective of the groups, I can totally understand that they would like to have that same opportunity as well. I don't think that's necessarily mutually exclusive. If we frame that first or both events in the way that this is about making impact mainstream, then this is specific to the outcome of that group, and I think that's totally okay. And we can do the same thing for the impact measurement group as well, and the collaboration group. I don't see that's exclusive. I don't know. Anyone else?
I hope this noise is not that disturbing enough, too much.
That's a UFO in your background.
Yeah. Maybe I lost a little bit track in between, and as I said, I'm not that into all the topics and all the results you got so far. But just a general question. When I think about a hackathon, then I have like the idea of bringing as much perspective inside to a certain topic, like bringing up ideas, which is related to ideas. In my opinion, is always like a product. The guidelines, I guess, is, for my opinion, could be more something which is like an interview format, where it's like talking to people inside this thing of what are the biggest like obstacles in a conversation with certain people. That is also a nice product, I guess, but it's I'm not quite sure if we come to a result when we just open up to everybody and say, okay, what's your ideas? Because then people like me are inside saying, okay, I've never talked to a VC, I have no idea, but I have maybe just an idea. And then bring it up, and then you have like several ideas which are not helpful because you are not expert in this field or you're not experienced enough in this field. So whether if you do this like in a hackathon, then we might be like really curating the people inside this group very well. Or this is the other question I have is maybe it's, I like the idea of a hackathon very much, especially like inside like what could be a great product or would be great products if you just say several for several people, because then you might have like the right network inside these and engaged also, because then they're like having their own ideas inside and maybe they want to spread it to others. So you're inside the process. Also it's a starting point or something. And as a like to bring up people to build the guidelines. I'm not quite sure if it's the right format for this. That's my question. So.
I think if we have really good questions, or as Joscha said, problem statements that can be addressed in that hackathon, it becomes directed. And if those questions or problem statements are directed towards that a type of publication that can be in the form of videos or printed or an app or whatever. Musst du gehen, Steff? Ah ja, okay. So, then...
Ich muss jetzt auch los übrigens, Thomas.
Okay.
Tut mir leid.
No problem. We will wrap this up in 2-3 sentences, and I will also send a message around. I think this time specifically to this small group of what my proposal would be for the next steps.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Very good.
sorry for
No problem.
stepping out. Sorry.
Perhaps we can open a channel in our Slack group to move this forward.
Yeah, that's I think that's a good idea. And then, but let me quickly, while we're still talking, sum up what I think. So at the end, there's some media content that helps people talk about impact investing, tech impact investing specifically. Gives them guidelines from different perspectives of how to do that in the field. In the field being in conversations with investors, in conversations with startups, families, on stages. How we get there is by first having a bunch of questions that come out of the MIMS group that need to be answered to enhance the content that is already there. And this is what we call the hackathon. So these questions go into one event where a larger group out of Gita gets together to work on these specific questions. And then in the second event, we will try and format the results in various ways towards making them visible. That would be my proposal. And if the impact measurement group wants to do something similar, or the collaboration group wants to do something similar, then we can use that. So I would see that as a tool for solving that situation that we have, that there is something, but we now have to move that into tangible space. And I think that's something we will run into again. And I think testing this process with these two events as a tool, as a process to get there could be useful.
Yeah, sounds good.
That's why you're the Scrum leader. So that's good. Agree on that. Well, let's try it.
Wonderful. Then let's try it. I'll write it out a little bit, and then invite all of us here into a Slack channel, and we discuss it, and then we'll just do it.
Okay.
Beautiful.
Cool.
Thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
Bye. Yeah, thank you. Bye bye.
Okay, bye. See you then.
Bye.